Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The knife slipped. Alex Trevin cursed under his breath as a thin line of blood welled up on his thumb. The wooden figurine, half-carved, something that might have been a bird once, tumbled into the ash at his boots. He pressed the cut against his jacket and watched the blood darken the fabric. Stupid, careless. But his hands needed something to do out here. Something other than check his perimeter every 30 seconds or count the rations he'd already counted twice today. The campfire was dying. Just embers now, pulsing faint orange in the dark. Beyond the light, Xylos stretched out in every direction. Endless desert, cracked earth, rock formations that looked like broken teeth against the horizon. 2 moons hung overhead, pale and misshapen, casting double shadows that made everything look wrong. The air tasted like copper and dust. He'd paid everything he had for this rock, every credit, every favor. Sold his ship, his cargo license, even the memorial plaque his sister had left him. Xylocorp's rep had smiled through perfect teeth and called it a virgin world, pristine, uncontaminated by colonial interference. Translation: empty, worthless. But it was his. No government, no debt collectors, no questions about where he'd been or what he'd done to survive the last 5 years. Just him and the silence. Alex picked up the figurine, brushed ash from the rough wood. The fire crackled once, settled lower. He should have banked it hours ago, should have... A branch snapped. Not a branch. There were no trees on Xylos, but something dry, something brittle breaking underfoot. Close. His hand moved before his brain caught up, fingers wrapping around the grip of his pistol. He didn't draw. Not yet. The night pressed in from all sides, thick and watching. His pulse hammered in his ears. He looked down. Footprints, bare feet. 5 toes each, slender arches pressed into the ash just beyond the fire's edge. Fresh enough that the ash hadn't settled back, hadn't been disturbed by wind, leading right up to where he sat, then away, back into the dark. Female, if he had to guess from the size and shape. Small, light. His mouth went dry. There shouldn't be anyone here. Alex stood slowly, gun rising. The weight of it felt good, solid, real. He scanned the darkness beyond the firelight, pupils straining to adjust. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. Just the wind hissing across broken stone and the faint electrical hum from his landing module 30 meters away. Then he saw them, shapes, tall and gaunt, standing motionless at the edge of the light. 7, maybe 8. More emerging from behind rocks, from the shadows between dunes. Their skin caught the moonlight, blue deep azure like drowned flesh, stretched tight over angular bones. Eyes reflected the firelight back at him, dozens of burning points in the dark, predator bright and desperate. They held spears, long crude things with stone tips that glinted sharp. "Stop right there," Alex said. His voice came out steadier than he expected. "I don't want trouble." They didn't stop. They spread out, moving with the kind of silent coordination that came from hunting together, from years of moving as one organism, surrounding him, cutting off escape routes he hadn't even mapped yet. One stepped forward, taller than the rest. Broader shoulders, though still lean, all sinew and controlled violence. Her face was carved from the same harsh angles as the landscape. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, eyes that burned with something beyond hunger. A scar ran from her left temple down to her chin, pale against the blue skin, pulling one corner of her mouth into a permanent half-snarl. She wore leather armor cobbled together from what looked like desert creature hide, reinforced with metal plates that had been beaten flat by hand. A leader. You could see it in the way she held herself, the exhaustion of command carved into every line of her body. She looked at him the way a starving woman looks at food. "Finally," she said, her voice scraped out like she hadn't had water in days. "A male." The wind gusted. The fire went out completely, plunging everything into moonlit darkness. Only the eyes remained, glowing, hungry, closing in. Alex's finger tightened on the trigger. "I said stop." "Or what?" The scarred woman took another step. "You'll shoot? How many bullets do you have? How many of us are there?" He did the math fast. 12 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. at least 20 shapes moving in the dark. His landing module had more ammunition, but it was too far, and they were too close. "I don't want to kill anyone," he said. "Good." She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Neither do we. Not you, anyway." The circle tightened. Spear points caught the moonlight. His back hit something solid, one of the rocks near his camp. Trapped. "What do you want?" The scarred woman stopped 3 meters away, close enough that he could see the cracked dryness of her lips, the way her hands trembled slightly on her weapon. Not from fear, from weakness. "What do we want?" She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "We want you to live. We want you to eat, to drink, to sleep safely. We want to give you everything you need." "Why?" Her smile vanished. "Because you're the first male we've seen in 97 years. The words hit him like cold water. Alex's gun wavered. "What?" "You heard me." She took another step. 97 years, 3 generations. We've watched our people die slowly, watched our children born weaker with each cycle, watched the mutations spread until we barely recognize ourselves anymore. And now you fall from the sky like you own this world. "I do own it," Alex snapped. "I have the deed. Xylocorp sold me. Xylocorp sold you a graveyard." Her voice cracked on the last word. "Our graveyard. We've been dying here for a century while your corporations pretended we didn't exist. And now you show up with your campfire and your landing module and your stupid wooden toys, and you think you can just sit here carving while we—" She stopped, swallowed hard. Her spear shook. "While we—" "What?" Alex said quietly. She met his eyes. "While we decide whether to beg or to take." One of the others, younger, maybe barely 20, stepped forward and threw something at his feet. Small, white. It bounced once and settled in the dirt. A bone, child-sized. Too small for anything but a young skull. "That's what happens," the young one hissed, "when you wait for help that never comes." Alex stared at the bone. His gun felt impossibly heavy. The scarred woman raised her hand. "Kaylin," she said. "My name is Kaylin. What's yours?" "Alex. Alex." She tested the word. "Human name, human features, human DNA. Do you understand what that means to us?" "I'm not breeding stock." "No." Her voice went soft, dangerous. "You're a miracle. You're a chance. You're the difference between extinction and survival. And we will do whatever it takes to make sure you understand that." "I'll help you," Alex said fast. "I'll contact the coalition, file a report, get you medical supplies, genetic specialists." "We have no time for bureaucrats." Kaylin's voice cracked like a whip. "Our women are dying now. Our children are being born too weak to survive their first winter. Every day we wait is another funeral pyre." She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell the desert on her, sweat and dust in desperation. "You will fulfill your duty to us, one way or another." Alex raised the gun again, pressed the barrel against her chest. "Stay back." She didn't flinch, didn't even blink, just held his gaze with those burning eyes while the circle of hunters tightened around them. "Look at me," Kaylin said. "Really look. Do you see a monster? Or do you see someone trying to save what's left of her people?" He saw the scar, saw the way her jaw clenched against whatever she was feeling, saw exhaustion and fear, and iron will held together by nothing but necessity. She saw fear behind his defiance, saw his hand trembling, saw a man who'd come here to hide from something and found something worse instead. They stood frozen like that, barrel pressed between them, breath clouding in the cold desert air. "Make your choice," Kaylin said. "Join us willingly, or what? You'll force me?" His voice shook with anger. "You'll chain me up like livestock? If we have to. Then you're no better than—" "Then what?" She grabbed the gun barrel, pulled it tighter against her chest. "Then slavers, then corporations, then men who buy planets and expect them to be empty?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "We're not better. We're desperate, and desperation makes everyone a monster eventually." Silence. Just the wind and their breathing, and 20 pairs of eyes watching in the dark. Alex lowered the gun. "I need time," he said, "to think, to process." "You have until dawn," Kaylin said. She stepped back, released the barrel. "Then we come back, and we won't be asking. She turned and walked into the darkness. The others melted away with her, silent as they'd come. Within seconds, there was no sign they'd ever been there, except the footprints in the ash and the small white bone at his feet. Alex stood alone by his dead fire, gun hanging loose in his hand. The moons moved across the sky. He didn't move at all. Dawn came cold and gray. Alex stood on the ridge above his camp, gun in one hand, surveyor scope in the other. Below, arranged in a perfect half circle, were the hunters. 30 of them now, maybe more, waiting silent while the sun bled red across the horizon. Kaylin stood at the front, no spear this time, just her, arms crossed, watching him. He'd spent the night reinforcing his camp, rigged the landing module's perimeter sensors, set up a portable barrier generator he'd been saving for emergencies, positioned spare ammunition where he could grab it fast. All useless. They could overrun him in seconds if they wanted, but they hadn't. They just waited. He walked down the ridge slowly, deliberately, stopped at the barrier line. "This is my planet," he said, loud enough for all of them to hear. "I bought it. Legal sale, registered deed, full colonial survey certification. You have no claim here." Kaylin's expression didn't change. "You bought a grave," she said. "Ours. Then I'll help you relocate. File for refugee status. Get you transport off-world." "To where?" one of the younger hunters shouted. "Every colony has quotas. Every world is full. We're not citizens of any system, not registered with any government. We're ghosts. We've been ghosts for 100 years. Then I'll help you become visible again. While we die waiting." Kaylin's voice cut through the argument like a blade. "You don't understand. We don't have months. We barely have weeks. Our youngest are already showing the mutations. Stillbirths every season. Women bleeding out during labor because their bodies are too weak to..." She stopped, swallowed. "We're not asking you to save the world, just to give us a chance to save ourselves." Alex gripped the gun tighter. "By using me." "Yes." The honesty of it hit harder than a lie would have. "I came here to be alone," he said. "To get away from..." He stopped. Couldn't finish. "From what?" Kaylin took a step forward. "From people who wanted things from you? From responsibilities you couldn't carry? From a past you couldn't fix?" She tilted her head. "You think you're the only one running from something? It's not the same." "No," she agreed. "It's not. I'm running toward my people. You're running away from yours. But we're both standing in the same desert, and only one of us has a choice about what happens next." The barrier hummed between them, a thin line of electromagnetic force that wouldn't stop a determined charge. "What if I refuse?" Alex said. "Then we take you anyway." Kaylin's voice went flat, emotionless. "We tie you down if we have to. We keep you sedated if we have to. We do whatever is necessary because that's what survival means. That's what watching your children die teaches you. The difference between right and necessary stops mattering when you're bearing your 5th infant. You'd make me a slave. We'd make you a father. Against your will, yes. But at least your children would live." The wind picked up, throwing dust between them. "And if I fight, then some of us die stopping you." She touched the scar on her face. "I've already lost so much, Alex. A few more scars won't change anything." His finger rested on the barrier control. One press, and they'd have to break through. He'd have maybe 10 seconds before they overwhelmed him. Enough time to grab the module's emergency beacon. Enough time to call for help that might arrive in days or weeks. Enough time for a lot of them to die for no reason. He looked at their faces, young and old, scarred and smooth. Every one of them wearing the same expression, grim determination mixed with desperate hope. Women who decided to do an evil thing for a good reason and would carry that choice for the rest of their lives. "There's a third option," he said quietly. Kaylin raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "You give me space. Let me live my way, on my terms. And I'll help you contact the outside. Real help. Medical teams, geneticists, people who know what they're doing. That's worth more than whatever you think I can give you. And while we wait for your real help, you survive, like you've been surviving for 97 years. She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think we're surviving? We're dying slowly. There's a difference." She gestured to the women behind her. "You see 30 hunters. I see 15 who won't live to see their next birthday. I see 8 who are already too sick to carry children. I see a people at the edge of extinction desperately grasping at the only lifeline that's appeared in a century. I'm not a lifeline. I'm one man. One man with viable genetic material. One man whose DNA isn't corrupted by whatever toxin or radiation or mutation has destroyed ours. One man who represents a chance, however small, that our next generation might be stronger than this one. She spread her hands. Is that such a terrible thing to ask? When you're asking me to give up my autonomy? Yes. Then we're at an impasse. They stared at each other across the barrier line. The sun climbed higher. His shadow stretched toward her shadow, almost touching. I need time, Alex said finally. You've had all night. I need more. A week. Let me repair my communications array. Let me verify the coalition channels are still active. 3 days, Kaylin interrupted. 3 days to try your coalition. If nothing changes, if no help arrives, if you haven't found a better solution, she let the silence finish the sentence. And in those 3 days, we watch, we wait, we stay out of your way. She paused. But we don't leave. So I'm a prisoner. You're a guest who hasn't decided to be a host yet. Alex's hand hovered over the barrier control. 3 days, 72 hours. Not enough time for coalition response. Not even enough time to confirm they'd received his signal. But it was something. A delay. A chance to think. Fine, he said. 3 days. Kaylin nodded once. 3 days. She turned and walked back toward her people. They melted into the landscape, disappearing behind rocks and into shallow valleys. Within minutes, the ridge looked empty again, but Alex could feel them watching. He lowered the barrier and walked back to his camp. The wooden figurine sat where he'd left it by the dead fire. He picked it up, turned it over in his hands. The blood from his cut had stained the wood dark. 3 days to find a solution. 3 days before they came back and made the choice for him. He looked at the horizon where the hunters had vanished and felt the weight of their eyes even through stone and distance. The blade slipped back into his belt. He had work to do. The first day passed in tense silence. Alex worked on the communications array, pulling apart burned-out circuits and swearing at century-old coalition encryption protocols that had changed 3 times since his installation manual was printed. Every few minutes he'd glance up at the ridge, at the rocks, at the shadows that might or might not be watchers. They were there. He could feel them. Midday he saw movement near the eastern ridge. 2 hunters carrying something. He grabbed his scope, focused. A small body wrapped in cloth, child-sized. They disappeared into a canyon before he could see more. Another funeral. His hands shook as he went back to work. By evening, he had the array functioning enough to send a basic distress beacon. Coalition emergency frequency, maximum power, repeating every 30 seconds. Asking for medical assistance, genetic specialists, refugee transport. He included coordinates, status report, everything that might make them prioritize his signal. Then he waited. The response time, if anyone heard, would be minimum 48 hours, probably longer. The nearest coalition outpost was 3 star systems away. He had 48 hours left of his 3-day deadline. The math wasn't encouraging. Night fell. He built another fire, more for comfort than warmth. The moons rose, casting their double shadows. He carved at the wooden figurine, trying to remember what it was supposed to be. Footsteps. His gun cleared the holster before he registered the sound, but only one person approached. Kaylin, alone, hands empty. She stopped at the edge of the firelight. "May I sit?" Alex gestured with the gun barrel. "Free planet. Yours legally, ours historically." She sat anyway, across the fire. Close enough to talk, far enough to be respectful. "Your beacon is active. You've been monitoring my equipment? We'd be fools not to." Fair point. He lowered the gun but didn't holster it. And nothing. It's a good signal. Clear, strong, properly formatted. If anyone's listening, they'll hear it. She paused. But listening and responding are different things? You think they'll ignore it? I think the coalition has bigger problems than one human on a backwater planet surrounded by unregistered alien refugees. She picked up a small stone, turned it, over in her fingers. "I think you already know that." He did, but hearing her say it made it real. "How long have you been here?" he asked. "On Xylos?" 347 years, give or take. That's Longer than coalition records for this system. We predate your coalition by 2,000 years. Kalen smiled without humor. We stopped making contact after the betrayals. Easier to disappear. Why here? Why Xylos? Because no one wanted it. Perfect for a people trying to die in peace. She looked up at the moons. We had almost succeeded. Then you arrived. I didn't know. Would it have changed anything if you did? Alex thought about that. Thought about the debt collectors, the warrants, the past chasing him across 3 systems. Thought about sleeping in his ship for 2 years, eating protein paste and recycled water, desperate for something solid under his feet. Probably not, he admitted. Honesty. Kalen's smile turned slightly warmer. That's rare. What happened? Alex asked. To your males. You said 97 years. Her smile vanished. A plague. Engineered. It killed every male in 3 months. She stared into the fire. We tried to adapt. Clone. Engineer solutions. But the corruption goes deeper than DNA. Every generation weaker. More mutations. We're evolving into extinction. And you think human DNA can fix that? We don't know, but doing nothing guarantees failure. Trying something at least offers a chance. She met his eyes. How much of a monster does that make me? For being willing to violate your autonomy for a statistical possibility? Alex didn't answer. Couldn't. I used to be different, Kalen continued quietly. Before I became war chief, I believed in consent, in choice, in doing things the right way. Then I buried my daughter, then my sister, then my sister's children. And somewhere between the 7th and 8th funeral pyre, I stopped caring about right and started caring only about effective. She touched her scar again. Unconscious habit. This happened when I stopped a group of elders from executing a young woman who refused to bear children. I told them we don't force. I told them we find another way. They gave me this and made me war chief specifically so I'd learn that leadership means doing things you hate. Did you learn? I'm here, aren't I? The fire crackled between them. Alex set down the figurine, picked up a fresh piece of wood, started carving without thinking. What are you making? Kalen asked. Don't know yet. Then why make it? Because my hands need something to do. She nodded slowly, like that made perfect sense. I understand that. They sat in silence for a while. The fire burned lower. The moons tracked across the sky. 2 days left, Kalen said finally. She stood, brushed dust from her legs. Use them well. She walked into the darkness. Alex watched her go, saw her shadow merge with other shadows on the ridge. He looked down at the wood in his hands. Without intending to, he'd started carving a face. Female. Angular. A scar running down one cheek. He threw it into the fire and watched it burn. Day 2. No response from the coalition, not even an acknowledgement ping. Alex recalibrated the array, boosted the signal strength, added emergency medical codes. Sent it all again. Waited. Nothing. He drank recycled water and ate protein bars and tried not to look at the ridge where he could feel them watching. Tried not to think about what would happen when his 3 days expired. Around noon, he couldn't take the waiting anymore. He grabbed his pack, loaded it with basic supplies, and hiked toward where he'd seen them carrying the small body yesterday. Not toward their camp, just toward. The canyon was narrow, shadowed, walls worn smooth by wind. He followed it for an hour before he saw the markers. Small cairns, dozens of them, spreading across a natural amphitheater. Graves. Some fresh, some old enough that the stones had settled deep into the sand. Too many small ones. He walked between them slowly, reading the marks scratched into rocks. Names in a language he didn't recognize. Dates. Short lives. Shorter every generation based on the intervals. You weren't invited here. Alex spun. Kalen stood at the canyon entrance, in spear in hand this time. 2 others flanked her. I know, he said. I'm sorry, I just needed to see. Why? Because numbers don't mean anything. Statistics don't mean anything. But this, he gestured at the graves. This is real. Kalen walked closer, stopped beside a fresh cairn. My niece, 4 days old. Lungs too weak to process our atmosphere. She suffocated slowly while we watched. Her voice stayed flat, controlled. Want to know what that sounds like? Want to know what her mother screamed while holding her? No. Then leave. Go back to your camp and your beacon and your hope that someone else will solve this." Alex didn't move. "Show me your village." "What?" "Your village. Your people. Let me see what I'm saying no to." Kalen stared at him. "Why would I do that?" "Because you keep telling me I don't understand. So help me understand." "Understanding won't change anything." "Maybe not, but I'm asking anyway." She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded once. "Follow me." They walked in silence. The canyon opened into a wider valley, sheltered from wind. And there, built into the cliff face, was their settlement. It wasn't a village. It was a testament to survival against impossible odds. Structures built from whatever they could scavenge. Metal panels beaten flat, stone cut by hand, fabric patched and repatched until you couldn't tell what it had been originally. Everything worn, everything repaired, nothing wasted. Solar collectors so old they'd lost half their efficiency. Water condensers held together with wire and prayer. A workshop with tools that looked hand-forged. And the people. Women moving with the careful economy of those who've known hunger. Children playing with stones and sticks because there were no toys. Elderly sitting in the shade. Bodies bent by years and illness. Every face marked by loss. They stopped and stared when Alex appeared. Conversations died mid-sentence. Kalen led him to the center of the settlement. A well stood there, ancient pump mechanism rusted and seized. Women waited in line with buckets, drawing from a muddy pool that had collected at the bottom. "Our primary water source," Kalen said, "broken for 3 years. We survive on condensation and whatever we can pull from deep underground. Half our sick children drink water contaminated with minerals that destroy their kidneys." She pointed to a young mother with a toddler. "See that child? She's 5. Should be twice that size. Stunted by malnutrition and chronic dehydration." Alex stared at the pump. The mechanism was seized but not destroyed. A broken coupling, corroded seals, jammed pressure valve, basic mechanical failure. He had parts on his landing module that could fix this. Standard universal fittings, basic hydraulics. "Why haven't you repaired it?" he asked. "Because we don't have the parts, don't have the knowledge. Our engineers died with the plague. We've spent 97 years losing expertise, losing skills, losing everything except the will to keep breathing." Kalen's voice cracked. "We're not stupid, Alex. We're desperate and dying and out of options." He looked at the pump, looked at the people, looked at Kalen's face, waiting for him to understand, to see, to care. "How many children?" he asked quietly. 17. 12 too sick to play." "How many pregnant?" 6. 2 won't survive labor. Maybe 3 of the infants will live a month." The numbers hit like physical blows. "And you think I can change that?" "I think you're a chance. The only one we have." She turned away. "Come, I'll show you back to your camp. You've seen enough." "Wait." She stopped. "Do you have guards? On the well? At night?" "Why would we need guards? There's nothing here worth stealing. Just answer." "No. Everyone sleeps at night. We're too tired not to." Alex nodded slowly. "Then get some rest tonight. All of you." "What are you planning?" "Nothing that concerns you." He met her eyes. "Yet." He walked back toward his camp without waiting for escort. Behind him he heard Kalen ordering her hunters to follow at a distance. To watch. To make sure he didn't try to run. He wasn't running. Not anymore. Midnight. Both moons high and bright. Alex moved through the darkness like a ghost. Pack heavy with tools and parts from his landing module. He'd stripped the emergency water recycler, the backup hydraulic system, every seal and coupling he could spare. Everything he'd need. The village was silent. Dark. He could see a few guards posted on the perimeter, but they faced outward, watching for threats from the desert, not from within. He slipped past them easily. The well sat in the center of the settlement, moonlight making the stagnant water at the bottom shine like oil. Alex knelt beside the pump, set down his pack, pulled out tools. The pump casing came apart with some effort. Decades of corrosion had welded pieces together. He worked slowly, carefully, trying not to make noise. The coupling was cracked, just as he'd thought. The pressure valve was jammed with mineral buildup. The seals had rotted away to nothing, all fixable. He pulled replacement parts from his pack, match them to the mechanism. Not perfect fits. He had to file down some connectors, jury rig adapters, but functional. Good enough. 2 hours of work in the cold desert air. His hands cramped. His back ached from crouching. He ignored it. The final seal clicked into place. He wiped sweat from his forehead, stood back, looked at his work. The pump sat reassembled. Alien and human technology merged into something hybrid and strange. Would it work? Only one way to find out. He primed the system manually, working the handle slowly. Once, twice. Resistance then. Water. Clear water erupting from the pipe, splashing into the collection basin. Cold and clean and perfect. The sound echoed across the silent village like thunder. Alex stood frozen, watching it pour. Silence. Just the water. Just that pure, clean sound in the dead of night. Then, behind him, someone gasped. He turned. A young woman stood there, child in her arms, staring at the water like she was watching a miracle. She screamed, not in fear, in joy. Others poured from their shelters. Women in sleeping clothes, children rubbing their eyes, elderly moving as fast as their bodies allowed. They surrounded the well, touching the water, tasting it, crying and laughing and shouting all at once. Alex backed away slowly, trying to slip back into the shadows. Wait! Kaylin pushed through the crowd, hair loose from sleep, knife in hand like she'd grabbed the first weapon she could reach. She saw him, saw the pump, saw the water. What did you— Nothing, he interrupted. I wasn't here. You fixed— I didn't do anything. He shouldered his pack. Just take care of your people. He walked away before she could respond. Before anyone could stop him or thank him or make this into something it wasn't. Just a simple repair. Just basic human decency. Nothing that changed the larger problem. Behind him, the celebration continued, getting louder. Women drenching their hair, children splashing in puddles, someone starting to sing. Alex walked back to his camp through the double-shadowed desert and tried not to feel like he'd just made everything more complicated. Dawn came with a visitor. Kaylin sat by his rebuilt fire, waiting. No weapons this time. Just her watching him approach with unreadable eyes. You should be with your people, Alex said. My people are celebrating. They don't need me. She gestured to the ground across from her. Sit. He sat. Silence stretched between them. The fire crackled. Wind moved dust across the hardpan. You did what I never asked, Kaylin said finally. That's what frightens me. Frightens you? Because I was ready to take from you by force. I was ready to be the monster. And then you go and do something kind, something that costs you and helps us, something that makes me question everything I've decided about you. She pulled something from her pocket, the wooden figurine, the one he'd carved her face into, the one he'd thrown in the fire. She must have pulled it out before it burned. You dropped this. She set it on the ground between them. Next to it, she placed a small clay jar. Herbal salve, for burns, cuts, infections. We make it from desert plants. It's— Thank you. For the water. Alex stared at the gifts. The figurine was smoke-stained but intact, her carved face looking up at him with eyes he'd given her. I didn't do it to change anything, he said. I know. That's why it changes everything. Kaylin stood. You have 1 day left, Alex. Whatever you decide tomorrow, whatever happens between us, thank you for giving my people one more night of clean water. She walked away. Alex picked up the figurine, turned it over in his hands. The salve jar sat next to it, stoppered with wax, labeled in script he couldn't read. His beacon pinged. He scrambled for the communications array, heart hammering. A response? Already? No, just an automated acknowledgement. Coalition tracking station, 3 systems over. Signal received, processing. Response time, 96-120 hours. 4 to 5 days. His 3-day deadline was tomorrow at dawn. He looked at the figurine, at the salve, at the ridge where Kaylin's people waited. Tomorrow they would come for him, and he had no answer that didn't end in violence or violation. The sun rose higher. He sat by his fire and carved nothing and waited for something he couldn't define. The last night came too fast. Alex spent the day preparing, not for war. He'd already done that math and knew how it ended. Not for escape. His ship was stripped for parts and wouldn't fly again without weeks of repair. Just preparing to say no, to draw a line in the sand and mean it, even knowing what it would cost. He cleaned his gun, checked the barrier generator, set up his final defensive position, recorded a message to the coalition explaining what happened here, what choice he'd made, what he hoped they'd do for these people after. He was calibrating the barrier frequency when his radar pinged. Movement, high altitude, fast. His blood went cold even before he saw it. A shadow crossed both moons. Too large, too fast. Wrong shape for atmospheric turbulence. Then the thunder split the sky. Not thunder. Engines. A ship dropping through the cloud layer. Massive, corporate clean, trailing vapor and the kind of roar that said military-grade propulsion. It banked hard, circling his position once. Scanning. Then it settled into hover 200 meters above the ridge. Alex's blood went cold. That hull design, those markings, Xylocorp, the same company that sold him this planet, the same company whose rep had smiled and promised him an empty world. A voice boomed across the desert, amplified, emotionless. Unregistered life forms detected. Corporate land rights, violation in progress. Clearing operation authorized. 30 seconds to comply with evacuation orders. No, Alex breathed. No. He grabbed his communicator, punched in the corporate frequency. This is Alex Trevin, landowner of record. I'm ordering you to stand down. Landowner contract, clause 47B. Property purchased as is, empty of sentient life. Presence of unregistered alien population constitutes breach of contract. Clearing operation proceeding. They were here first. They've been here for centuries. Corporate assets take precedence. 20 seconds. Drop pods launched from the ship's belly. 6 of them trailing fire, slamming into the sand hard enough to throw up dust clouds. Ramps dropped. Figures emerged. Mercenaries in full combat exosuits, powered armor gleaming, weapons that made his pistol look like a child's toy. Flamers, plasma rifles, grenade launchers. A clearing team, built to scour a planet clean. Alex ran, not away, toward the village, toward Kalen's people who had 30 seconds to realize they were about to die. Contact! The lead mercenary's voice crackled through external speakers. Multiple hostiles. They're not hostile, Alex screamed. Stand down. The Huntresses poured from the village like water through a broken dam, spears raised, moving with the desperate speed of people who know they're fighting for extinction. Kalen led them, war cry tearing from her throat. The spears bounced off armor. The plasma rifles didn't bounce off flesh. The first volley cut through 3 women before Alex's brain processed what he was seeing. Bodies hit the sand, smoking. The smell of burned meat thick in the air. No! He fired his pistol at the nearest mercenary. The round sparked off armor plating, useless. The mercenary turned toward him, weapon rising. Kalen hit the soldier from the side like a meteor, spear driving through the suit's joint seam, the only weak point, finding flesh beneath. The mercenary went down screaming. To the canyon, Kalen shouted. Scatter and run. But they weren't running. They were fighting. 100 women with stone weapons against 6 walking tanks, fighting because this was their home, their graveyard, their last stand. Alex sprinted toward the nearest mercenary, ducked under a rifle burst, jammed his gun into the neck seal and fired twice. The soldier dropped. A grenade arced through the air. Time slowed. It tumbled end over end, perfect parabola, landing amid a cluster of young huntresses trying to pull wounded toward cover. Kalen saw it. Her eyes went wide. She dove. Alex saw her move and knew with absolute certainty that she was going to shield them. Going to take the blast herself because that's what leaders do. That's what desperation teaches you. He ran faster than he'd ever run, grabbed her mid-dive, shoulder-checked her sideways, threw himself over the grenade. The world became white noise and pain. He felt himself lifted, spinning, hitting something hard, tasted blood. Couldn't hear anything except a high-pitched whine that might have been his eardrums rupturing or might have been someone screaming. Dust and silence. Alex lay on his back staring at the sky, watching the moon spin. Everything hurt. Everything was distant and muffled and wrong. A face appeared above him. Kalen. mouth moving. No sound. Then sound rushed back in, all at once, too loud. "Lex! Alex, don't die! Don't you dare die!" Her hands pressed against his chest. Blood. So much blood. His? Probably. Everything felt wet and hot. "Fine," he slurred. Get to cover." "You're not fine, you idiot, you..." Her voice cracked. "Why would you do that?" "Same reason. You would've." Boots crunched on sand. Heavy. Mechanical. The mercenary captain stood over them, weapon trained down. Through the helmet's visor, Alex could see cold eyes assessing the situation. Male subject detected. Human. Alive. The captain spoke into his comm. Updating mission parameters. Capture priority authorized. "No," Kaylin growled. She stood, putting herself between Alex and the gun. Her spear was gone, snapped in half somewhere. She had nothing, just her body and her will. The captain laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You going to stop me with your bare hands?" "If I have to." "Kaylin," Alex gasped. "Don't," she charged. 6 armed mercenaries in powered armor versus 1 unarmed woman who'd already decided dying didn't matter as much as protecting what she loved. The captain raised his rifle. Kaylin grabbed the barrel, yanked hard, used the soldier's own momentum to throw him off balance. Her fist connected with the helmet, useless except it bought her a second. She kicked low, targeting the knee joint, heard something crack. The other mercenaries moved in. She spun, grabbed a fallen spear shaft, drove it into a suit's shoulder seam. Blood sprayed. She kept moving, ducking under a plasma burst, coming up inside another soldier's guard, fingers finding the helmet release. A rifle butt caught her in the ribs. She went down, got back up, a fist in powered armor hit like a hammer. She spun, blood flying from her mouth, got back up. They surrounded her, weapons ready, and she stood there swaying, barely conscious, both hands broken, ribs cracked, bleeding from a dozen wounds, still standing. "Persistent," the captain said. "I'll give you that." He aimed at her head. Alex's hand found his pistol, raised it, vision swimming, aimed, fired. The shot went high, missed, but it distracted them long enough. The Huntresses who'd scattered were returning, flowing back like a tide, screaming war cries in their ancient language. 50 women, 70, 100. Every able body in the settlement, armed with stones and spears in desperation. They hit the mercenaries like a wave. Spears found weak points. Stones battered helmets. Bodies piled on, dragging soldiers down through sheer weight. A flamer discharged into the crowd, immolating 3 women who kept fighting even as they burned. Alex dragged himself upright, gasping against the pain in his chest. Grabbed a rifle from a fallen mercenary. The weapon was heavy, unfamiliar, but the trigger worked the same way. He fired into the massive combat, targeting the mercenaries, covering Kaylin as she pulled wounded toward the canyon. Fired until the charge pack ran dry, then picked up another weapon, kept firing. The captain rallied his team, pulling back toward the ship. "AIR support. We need..." The ship's weapon systems came online, targeting lasers painting the ground around the village. "Everybody down!" Alex screamed. The first missile launched. Kaylin grabbed him, dragged him into the canyon mouth as the world behind them exploded into fire and shrapnel. The ancient stones shook. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. They huddled in the darkness, pressed against cold rock, while outside the bombardment continued. Systematic, thorough, erasing the village from existence. When the explosions finally stopped, Kaylin pulled away from him. Her face was ash-covered, blood-streaked, beautiful in the way broken things are beautiful. "Why?" she whispered. "You could have run, could have let them take us. Why did you fight?" "Because you're not monsters," Alex said. Blood bubbled at his lips. "And neither am I." She pressed her forehead against his. "Don't die." "Wasn't planning on it." "Good." She touched the wound in his side, her fingers coming away red. "Because I think I fell for you somewhere between the first time I threatened you and the moment you threw yourself on a grenade." He laughed, winced. "That's a short timeline. We don't have time for slow." She pulled back, looked toward the canyon entrance where firelight flickered. "The ship's still out there. They'll come back with more. Then we make it too expensive." Alex struggled to his feet, leaned heavily against the wall. Rally your people. I need a count. Who can still fight? Who's wounded? What weapons we have? You can barely stand. Then I'll fight sitting down. He met her eyes. These bastards sold me a planet and lied about what it cost. They destroyed your home. They're not taking anything else. Kaylin studied his face, then nodded once. Huntresses! Her voice echoed through the canyon. To me! They gathered in the shadows, 40 women, maybe 50. Less than half who'd started the battle. Some wounded, some dying, all ready to fight again. The humans have ships, one of the young ones said. Weapons we can't match. How do we make them bleed, Kaylin interrupted. We make them pay for every meter. We turn our canyon into a tomb for anyone who enters. And we hope, she looked at Alex, we hope that one human is enough to change the story. Alex checked his stolen rifle. Half charge, maybe 20 shots. I'm not a hero, he said. No, Kaylin agreed. You're a stubborn idiot who fixes water pumps and jumps on grenades, which is better. Outside engines roared. The ship was repositioning. They're coming back, someone said. Let them. Kaylin picked up a spear, tested its weight. We're not running anymore. The canyon walls narrowed ahead, a natural choke point, defensive positions behind rocks, high ground, limited approach angles, a killing field if they were smart. If they were desperate enough, they were both. Alex took position behind a boulder, sighted down the canyon mouth. The pain in his side screamed. He ignored it. Pain meant he was alive. Alive meant he could still fight. Alive meant he still had a choice. 3 days ago, he said quietly, I would have let them kill you, would have convinced myself it wasn't my problem. Kaylin crouched beside him, loading a rifle she'd taken from a dead mercenary. What changed? I saw your graves. I saw your children. I saw you willing to become a monster to save them. He checked his sight picture. And I realized I'd rather die standing with you than live alone with my cowardice. She touched his hand, brief, gentle, then pulled away to give orders to her fighters. Boot steps echoed at the canyon entrance. 4 mercenaries in fresh armor, moving tactical, weapons up. Behind them, 2 more carrying heavy support weapons. Final warning, the captain's voice boomed. Surrender the human male and evacuate. Non-compliance will be met with lethal force. Kaylin stood, stepped into the open. Come and take him. The first mercenary died 3 steps into the canyon, spear through the throat from a hidden huntress. The second took a rifle round from Alex, armor-piercing shot he'd loaded special. The third made it 5 meters before rocks rained down from above, breaking his helmet seals. The heavy weapons opened up, plasma scoring the canyon walls molten. Then it became chaos. Close quarters hell where armor didn't matter as much, where spears could find seams and stones could crack visors. The Huntresses fought like demons, like women with nothing left to lose, flowing around the mercenaries in patterns honed by centuries of hunting. Alex fired, reloaded, fired again, covering Kaylin as she led charges, targeting weak points, making every shot count. A mercenary grabbed a young huntress, lifted her off her feet. She sank a knife into his neck seal, twisted. They fell together. The captain aimed at Kaylin's back. Alex shot him in the knee. The armor held, but the impact staggered him. Long enough for Kaylin to spin, drive her spear up through the chin guard, into the brain. The captain dropped. The remaining mercenaries broke, ran, scrambled back toward their ship through a hail of stones and thrown spears. Silence fell slowly. Alex slid down the wall, gasping. His vision tunneled. The wound in his side felt hot, wrong, infected maybe. Kaylin dropped beside him. Still alive? Define alive. Breathing, conscious, extremely stupid. Then yes. She pulled his shirt up, examined the wound. Her face went pale. This is bad. How bad? I need a real doctor bad. Fresh out of those. She pulled out the clay jar, the herbal salve she'd given him, started packing the wound. He screamed, couldn't help it, bit down on his jacket sleeve to muffle the sound. Shh, she whispered. I know it hurts. Just breathe. He breathed, in, out, in, tried to focus on her face instead of the agony. The ship's leaving, someone called. They looked up. Through the canyon entrance, they could see the corporate vessel lifting off, engines burning white against the darkening sky. Retreating. "They'll come back," Kalen said, "with more ships, more soldiers." "Maybe." Alex's voice was weak, distant. "Or maybe someone heard the battle. Maybe coalitions monitoring corporate operations. Maybe we bought time." "Time for what?" "For that." He pointed at the horizon. 3 ships dropping through the atmosphere. Not corporate hulls. Military configuration. Coalition markings. His beacon. Someone had heard. Someone had come. "Hold on," Kalen said fiercely. She gripped his hand. "You hold on, Alex Trevin. You don't get to save us and then die. That's not how this works." "Noted," he managed. The coalition ships circled once, then landed near the destroyed village. Ramps dropped. Medics, soldiers, diplomats, real help. Finally. Alex's vision grayed at the edges. "Stay with me," Kalen said. "Alex, look at me." He looked, saw her face, fierce and frightened and impossibly beautiful. "Promise me," she whispered. "Promise me you'll live." "I promise." "Liar," he smiled, blood on his teeth. "Takes one to know one." She laughed, crying, her tears cutting tracks through the ash on her face. The medics arrived, pulling her away, surrounding him with equipment and urgent voices. He tried to hold on to her hand but couldn't feel his fingers anymore. Darkness took him gently, carrying him down into silence. His last thought was that he hoped she'd be there when he woke up. If he woke up, white light, antiseptic smell, medical bay, coalition standard. He knew it before he opened his eyes. The hum of life support, the soft beep of monitors, the particular quality of recycled air. Alex opened his eyes slowly. Kalen sat beside his bed, head down on the mattress edge, sleeping. Her hand gripped his, fingers interlaced. She'd cleaned up, someone had given her soap and water, but the bruises remained, dark purple across her face and arms. Bandages wrapped her ribs. She'd stayed. He squeezed her hand. She jerked awake immediately, warrior fast, hand going for a weapon that wasn't there. Then she saw him, saw his eyes open, and everything in her face softened. "You're awake." "How long?" "3 days. The doctor said..." She stopped, swallowed. "It was close." Alex looked down at himself. Bandages, IV lines, monitoring equipment. He felt disconnected, distant. "Your people?" "Alive. The Coalition's processing asylum. Your beacon triggered an investigation into Xylocorp's clearing operation." She smiled, tired. "You started a political incident." "Wasn't planning on that either." "You're terrible at planning." She touched his face, gentle. "They asked what you were doing here, why you fought, whether you were coerced. What did you tell them?" "That you could have run, that you chose us instead." Silence stretched between them. The monitors beeped steadily. "3 days ago," he said quietly, "you were ready to force me." "I know." "And now?" She met his eyes. "Now I understand the difference between survival and living, between preserving DNA and preserving humanity." She pulled something from her pocket, the wooden figurine, still smoke-stained, still cracked. "Someone found this. Thought you'd want it back." He took it, turned it over. His blood still stained the wood. "Looks like you," he said. "Looks like who I was." She touched the carved scar. "Before I met a stubborn human who taught me that some things matter more than survival. Your people still need help, and they're getting it, because you made them see us as people." She leaned forward. "You asked me once why I stayed. Want to know the real answer?" "Yes. Because somewhere between threatening you and watching you fix our water pump, I realized I didn't want a male to save my species. I wanted you. Specifically. Stubbornly. Impossibly." She pressed her forehead against his. "Not to breed, not to preserve. Just you." Alex felt something in his chest that wasn't pain. Something warmer. "I bought a planet to be alone," he said. "To escape. And instead I found a war chief who threatened to kidnap you? Someone worth fighting for." She kissed him then, soft and careful, mindful of his injuries. Tasted like salt and ash and hope. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. "You can go wherever you want when you recover. Back to your empty planet if that's still what you need." And if I wanted to stay, with my people, with you, Kaylin smiled, real and unguarded, then I'd say you're still a stubborn idiot, she squeezed his hand, and that I'd like that very much. Their fingers interlaced, his thumb traced circles on her palm. Outside the window, the refugee station moved with purpose. Not a home yet, but a beginning. The planet probably won't stay empty, he said. Coalition might let me keep it. Your people could settle there. Legally. Build something real. A home. A home. He looked at their joined hands. Not a grave, she whispered. Not a grave, he agreed. Outside, the first sun rose. Just one sun. Normal, familiar. Painting the station in gold. A new day. A new beginning. Alex closed his eyes, exhausted, healing, alive. Felt Kaylin's hand in his. Felt less alone than he'd been in years. When he woke again, hours later, she was still there. Still holding on. Still choosing to stay. They'd surrounded him to preserve their kind. She'd stood before him to preserve his soul. And somehow, impossibly, that had been enough. Water! 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 The child's voice cut through the morning air, high and bright with wonder. Alex stood on the ridge 2 months later, watching the scene below. A cluster of children surrounded the old pump. The monument now, hands reaching for the clear stream that poured endlessly. Their laughter echoed off canyon walls. The settlement had grown around it. Coalition engineers had provided materials, but the design was pure Huntress. Structures following natural curves, solar arrays catching maximum light, water recyclers feeding clean pipes throughout. Real children, dozens of them, running, playing, alive in ways he'd never seen during those first desperate days. Arms wrapped around him from behind. You're supposed to be resting, Kaylin said. I've been resting for 8 weeks. I'm done resting. Doctors said 6 more days before heavy activity. Standing on a ridge isn't heavy activity. She moved to stand beside him, hip pressing against his, their hands finding each other naturally. Her ribs had healed, the bruises faded. The scar on her face remained, but she wore it differently now, not as a mark of defeat, but as a reminder of what she'd survived. They watched the settlement together in comfortable silence. The first coalition supply ship arrives tomorrow, she said. Medical equipment, construction materials, genetic samples to diversify the population base. Real hope instead of desperate fantasy. Good. The council asked if I'd stay on as liaison, bridge between my people and the coalition. Will you? If you stay too. He looked at her. As what? Landowner? Ambassador? As my partner. In everything. She turned to face him fully. I know we started badly. I know I threatened you, cornered you, made you into a thing instead of a person. And I know that 2 months isn't long enough to erase that, but I want to try, if you'll let me. Alex thought about the man who'd landed here 3 months ago, running from his past, desperate for isolation, convinced that connection only led to pain. That man was gone. I'll stay, he said, not because I own the planet, not because your people need me, but because I choose to, because you choose me. Every day, without coercion or desperation. Every day, she agreed. They kissed there on the ridge, while below them a settlement grew from ashes, while around them a world learned to live again, while above them the moons, twin and pale and beautiful, watched as they always had. When they pulled apart, Kaylin reached into her pocket. I made you something. A wooden figurine, small, carved with more skill than his rough attempts. A man with kind eyes and stubborn set to his jaw. Him. Companion piece, she said. So yours doesn't get lonely. He laughed. You know they're just wood, right? They don't actually have feelings. Don't they? She pressed it into his palm. You carved me when you were trying to understand what I was. I carved you now that I know who you are. Seems fair. He looked at the figurine, at the care she'd put into every detail, at the way she'd captured something essential about him that he'd never seen himself. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You haven't heard the full proposal. What proposal? The council wants to rename the planet, something that honors both species, both survival stories. They suggested, she paused, smiling, Trevin Kell, your name and mine. That's presumptuous, hasty, Overly romantic? Perfect, he finished. That's perfect. She grinned, wide and genuine. Good, because I already told them you'd agree. Confident. I learned from the best stubborn idiot I know. They walked down toward the settlement together, hands linked, shadows merging in the afternoon light. At the village entrance, children spotted them and ran over, shouting welcomes in broken human standard mixed with their own language. One small girl, barely 5, eyes bright and healthy, grabbed Alex's free hand. Come see, she said. We built new gardens, with earth seeds the coalition brought. Real vegetables. She dragged him toward the cultivation domes while Kalen laughed behind them. This was his life now. Not isolation, not emptiness, but noise and chaos in children's hands and a woman who'd threatened to kidnap him and somehow become the reason he stayed. Not what he'd planned. Better. That evening, as the sun set and both moons rose, the settlement gathered for dinner, a tradition Kalen had started, bringing everyone together once a day to share food and stories. Humans and huntresses, children and elders, coalition liaisons and local guides, all sitting around long tables carved from desert stone. Someone stood to give a toast, then another. Stories about the battle, about survival, about water pumps and grenades and stubborn humans who jumped on explosives. When it was his turn, Alex stood slowly. All eyes turned to him. 3 months ago, he said, I came here to be alone, to hide from my past, from my failures, from the person I thought I'd become. He looked around the table at faces that had become familiar, become dear. You surrounded me because you were desperate, because you needed something I could give, and you had every right to be angry at the universe for dealing you such a cruel hand. He found Kalen's eyes across the table. But you also gave me water when I was thirsty, taught me your language, showed me your graves and your children and your terrible, beautiful stubbornness. You treated me like a person even when you couldn't afford to. And somewhere in there, I stopped running. He raised his glass. Water, clean and cold from the pump they'd repaired together. To Trevin Kell, to survival, to choosing each other every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. To Trevin Kell, the crowd echoed. The celebration continued late into the night. Music, huntress drums and human synths mixing into something new. Dancing that evolved from traditional forms into hybrid movements. Laughter that came easier now, less tinged with grief. Alex and Kalen slipped away around midnight, walking to the ridge again, needing quiet after the noise. They sat on the warm stone, shoulders touching, looking at stars that belonged to neither species but to both. Do you regret it? Kalen asked softly. Giving up your isolation? Your empty planet? Alex thought about that seriously. No, he said finally. I thought I wanted emptiness. Turns out I just wanted peace. And this, he gestured at the settlement below, at her beside him. This is peace. Chaotic and messy and loud, but peace. Good. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Because you're stuck with us now. Stuck implies I'm not choosing. Fair point. She was quiet for a moment. Alex? Yeah? Thank you. For throwing yourself on that grenade. For fighting when you could have run. For seeing us as people instead of problems. Thank you, he replied. For standing before me instead of just surrounding me. For choosing connection over control. For teaching me that sometimes the scariest thing isn't dying alone. It's living with others. She turned her head, kissed his shoulder through his shirt. We make a good team. For people who started by pointing weapons at each other. The best relationships start with mild hostage situations. She laughed, surprised and delighted. Is that what we're calling it? Would you prefer aggressive contract negotiation? Accurate. Terrible. I love it. They sat there as the night deepened, as the settlement below slowly went dark, as the universe turned indifferent overhead. Two people who'd found each other in the worst possible way and somehow made it work. Not because it was easy, because they chose it. Every single day.